Now, you've heard what the Prime Minister said. These are preventable deaths, and the government should do all it can to try and make sure it can keep people healthy.
And as a non-smoker, I've never smoked in my life. I completely sort of sit in the same camp. The challenge that we have, as you can appreciate, is given the fact that we represent an industry that broadly has pub gardens, has outdoor spaces that have been built off the back of the pandemic. Millions of pounds have been put into creating these spaces and managing them appropriately. It just seems very, very difficult that we haven't had the conversation with government to start to talk about how this can be managed in terms of the nuances that we're talking around this smoking ban. We still don't understand what the detail is, but once the detail comes out, we can also really understand what the impact is. But there are questions around things like shisha bars, whether vapings are included within this. And we do go back to this question is why is hospitality, given the vulnerability it's presented with economically at the moment, why it's been targeted once again and levied this uncertainty for the future for many within the industry.
And we'll come on to some of the uncertainty for the industry in a minute, Michael. But just, on the smoking ban, I mean, I wonder, were the association against the ban on smoking inside pubs when that came in all those years ago?
Well, it's interesting how it was brought up as well. I mean, you also have to understand that what we did is create outdoor spaces for this. Whether you're a nightclub, you created an outdoor smoking space. That's why we've had this sort of explosion of outdoor environments which are heated, protected, and protected from the weather, etc., so that we can accommodate for it. So there was a pivot and an opportunity for businesses to manage. What we are talking about now is a carte blanche banning of those environments, which creates a very, very difficult environment and situation for people, and possibly barriers for people coming back into the hospitality sector while it is ailing and is challenged as we sit economically at the moment. The last thing we can do with is lose footfall and economically have that huge impact and possibly further closures.
Well, let's stick with that then for a minute, Michael. As you mentioned, we don't know all the detail yet, and you're still waiting to see that. And I think you mentioned you wanted some consultation, really, just to sort of know where you are with it. But is there a fear that some venues could have to close if this were to come in?
Well, we have to recognise that there is a proportion of businesses out there that rely heavily on these outdoor spaces. They're very important for them. If that impacts on footfall, given the margins being eroded so heavily, to operate a business these days is 30 to 40% more expensive than it was pre-pandemic. We know that footfall is down because people haven't got as much disposable income. So when you start to add the fact that we're talking about this uncertainty around the ban and the fact that the messaging and narrative around the autumn budget is starting to come through as possibly being challenging or burdensome in terms of further taxation, there is really not a pretty narrative or message coming out of the new government that supports the industry, which has probably been the hardest impacted over the last 4 or 5 years.
I mean, what insight do you have to how customers feel about this sort of thing? And thinking back to the smoking inside ban, I feel like, I mean, I worked in a bar at the time when that was coming in. There was some resistance to it, wasn't there? But then once it came in, everyone who worked in bars was delighted because you didn't go home, especially if you weren't a smoker, smelling of cigarettes.
And exactly. I mean, look, I'm a non-smoker. I've never smoked in my life. I've been around smokers. I've worked in the industry. People want to have choices. That's why the outdoor areas were created. That's why we worked very hard to segregate food and drink away from those smoking environments. But I think the concern is and many of the people I'm speaking to at the moment are frustrated and angered at this policy coming out without really consultation with the industry, because there are nuances around it. And people are walking around probably more frustrated at the fact that we're actually becoming more of a nanny state. The government are dictating and trying to manage our choices. And I hear the NHS argument, but then again, we are sat in a position where people are feared, are afraid at night. Safety is a real issue. We haven't got enough police on the street. When you talk about regulating this, I mean, it's hard enough to get a police officer out when there is a serious incident, let alone when someone is contravening a smoking regulatory sort of position. So I think the concern that we have is we really need to understand the detail, and then we can really assess the impact. But the key thing is the communication between government and industry has to come now and has to come quickly if this is something that they're seriously looking at.
Well, let's just follow some of that thought through then, Michael. So I guess because of the way that this was sort of leaked to a newspaper and now we're discussing without all the detail, this is part of the discussion, isn't it? You know, people who are making these decisions will be listening to people like you. So what is it you want to hear? I mean, are you saying you're against the idea wholeheartedly, or is there some kind of discussion you think that needs to be had?
I think there's always a balance that can be come about. I don't think it's a matter of closing it off. I think the timing is really poor for the industry. But I mean, if you think, I mean, I've just come from Coco in Camden that's got a beautiful roof terrace space. I've gone around the new building and they've got terrace spaces where they've accommodated for people to be able to go out and vape and smoke. And as we're walking around, we're talking about that can't be used with new regulation, that can't be used with the new ban. So you actually start to accommodate and understand the impacts that this has. And you also have to understand that there's going to be a level of displacement. In Canada, there is a 9-foot or a 9-meter guide where people cannot smoke near a building. That just displaces people into the public domain. So are we really dealing with the issue or are we displacing it? And I just think that there are stronger ways of trying to manage this collectively so that we can move people forward. And one of the key ones is education. Education has to be front and foremost in this. We see it in the schools. We're not doing enough with it. And it's rife. I've got a daughter that is surrounded by it at the moment. And I think it's a really important
So what,
thing.
Cigarettes or vaping, Michael? Sorry, just because that is interesting, isn't it?
Both.
Right.
And I think, you know, the worry that we have is we've gone straight to an environment of banning them in some of these public spaces. And, you know, when you talk about hospitals and schools, I completely understand that. But when you talk about regulated licensed spaces where they are managed appropriately and secure, we have to think of a way of managing this as we move through the process. We understand there are less people smoking, but there are still 6.4 million people smoking out there. And some of these pubs rely heavily on that custom. And people won't come if they feel that they can't make those choices on their own grounds.